All right. And we are live. Um, if you're joining in, thank you very much. Welcome to the first official podcast. Something I've been wanting to do for a very long time. But obviously just never pulled the trigger on it, and I figured what a better time to start than right now. So, um, thank you for joining in, and you know, let's get straight into it. I think the way that I would like to start everything is just to kind of give an outline as to like everything that I've learned over my career and sort of like what this podcast is going to be about, and sort of just delving into kind of why I've decided to start this now, and kind of what we're going to be in for. I started, I started martial arts when I was, I don't know, 4 or 5, like really, really young. I started with karate and judo. You know, my mother was a judo. She did judo for a long time, and my family's kind of always been in the karate and judo sort of scene, traditional martial arts. And so I started when I was really, really young with judo and karate, and you know, competed and did all the things that you do when you are in those sort of environments, the katas and the kumites and all that stuff. And I got I got pretty bored with it pretty quickly. Um, Stopped around the age of 13, just because consistency just it didn't really grab me, Um, I mean, I knew I wanted to do martial arts, but I just didn't get the hook on those martial arts, and um, I wanted something a little bit more physical, a little bit more, I don't know. I played sports my whole life. Played rugby, cricket, soccer, all of that, water polo, did all that stuff throughout my whole career. Throughout my whole school career, I guess. Um, but never really got hooked onto any of the sports like I have with MMA or with Muay Thai or with combat sports. Um, yeah, and then basically, when I was 14, I got my first sort of intro into what Muay Thai was. And it was crazy because at the time it was so stupid. I was watching the movie Bloodsport with Jean-Claude Van Damme, which is like, you know, was it Bloodsport? No, Kickboxer. It was Kickboxer. That's right, Kickboxer, the movie Kickboxer. And there was a guy, Tong Po, who was like kicking the fucking wall, and like the bricks and shit were falling down. And I was like, that's some hardcore shit. And so I watched that, and I was like, okay, this is that's cool. I'm gonna try that. And my brother's girlfriend at the time was training at a place in in Cape Town, and she was like, "Oh, I do that," and I was like, "No, you don't." Watching the movie Kickboxer, and then like some like lady telling me like, "Oh, she does that." I'm like, "Okay." So anyway, that's how I started with Muay Thai. I guess is that you know the movie Kickboxer, Jean-Claude Van Damme, and then my brother's girlfriend at the time. Um, and so yeah, tried it, loved it. I feel like everyone that tries it loves it. It's a lot of fun, especially if you come from like I came from traditional martial arts background where it's like no contact, you don't hit anybody. It's like all like katas and stuff like that. Now like you're punching the pad, you're hitting the bag, you're doing some like drills with partners and stuff. There's like an actual person in front of you now. It's like, you know, it got me instantly. And so, yeah, I mean that I was 14, I think, when I signed up, and I was hooked from the start. And before I knew it, I think it was 6 months, and I had my first fight, just before I turned 15. And then yeah, that was pretty much it. I distinctly remember walking out of my first fight, which I won in the third round. Um, I remember walking out, and my mom, who was obviously like there at the watching me as I came out of the ring, and she like was like, "Oh, well done," and I was like, "Mom, I want to do this. I'm going to be a professional fighter. That's what I'm going to do." And obviously, like I'm sure every kid says that about something in their life, and they say, "Oh, mom, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that," and then you know, but I genuinely was like, fuck all this other shit. I want to do this. That's what I want to do. I want to fight. I want to do Muay Thai forever. And so one thing, I mean, I fought again in like 2 months. 2 months later, I fought again. Um, won that fight as well in the first round. And then next thing I know, I'm kind of just fighting as much as I can. Um, and next thing I know, I'm planning on going to Thailand, and Thailand was just like a complete mindfuck for me because it was like you go to Thailand. First of all, I'd never been overseas before in my life. I went to Thailand. Um, culture shock, like crazy, like the biggest culture shock ever. I mean, if anyone's ever been to Thailand, they'll know. Like, if you go to Thailand for the first time, it's like crazy. Um, not at all what South African culture or South African lifestyle is like. And so the culture shock for me was like the biggest thing. And then the actual training, which is like, back in those days, like nowadays, you can go on the internet and like basically train like a Thai, um, without ever going to Thailand. You can like watch tutorials or watch how certain guys train in fights and you get all this stuff. But back then, it was like if you want to train like a Thai, you had to fucking go to Thailand. Like, so I didn't know what the fuck I was in for. And so got there, only foreigner. Well, there was one other foreigner, but he was been living there for like years, so he was basically Thai. Um, and it was me, like this teenager, lighty, didn't know anything about anything, and I was just like, cool, I'm just gonna go there and I'm just gonna train, I'm gonna fight, I'm gonna do whatever I need to do. For the first three fights that I had there, like no one actually like held pads for me or trained me. I just like hit the bag and then I'd be like, "Can I fight?" And they're like, "Yeah, we got to fight for you on this dates and whatever." And like, okay, cool. Obviously, like no one could actually speak English, so it was like very broken, very much like, okay, number, show me the number of the dates and like this date you're gonna fight here, you're gonna fight this weight, and like, okay, cool, whatever. Um, and then over time, like you start building a relationship with the trainers and the coaches, and eventually you become part of the ecosystem. And yeah, I mean, I think my first Thai fight was for like 500 bahts or something, which is like now it's like what, 250 rand. It's like nothing, like it's like no money. Professional Thai fighting, and yeah, I mean, it was possibly the best thing for me because I was like a reckless, angry kid, and I had this thing now that like I could like sort of focus into, and gave me like a sense of purpose and something to actually like set a goal towards and have some aim in my life and like some point. And yeah, you know, the Thailand for geez, on and off 4 years, and basically the only time I would come back from Thailand is basically my visa expired and I couldn't do any more visa runs because like you only get a certain amount of those you can do. Or I ran out of money and I was like, yeah, I need to go home and uh, make some more money and try to come back. And so in between doing that, over time you get like a little bit bored of being in Thailand. And I realized that like I would come home and sort of the MMA kind of like just got into the senior and like I was seeing guys like being able to fight on TV and being able to be at home and fight on TV and even though it wasn't Muay Thai, I was like at that time Muay Thai was like the only place you could really do it was in Thailand, what professionally at least. And so I was like, fuck it, let me give this shit a try. I didn't know anything about anything, so I was just like, let me give it a try. And some of the guys that I was training with already were doing MMA, and so I figured, fuck it, why not? And so 6 months later, had my first MMA fight. Obviously, I wasn't allowed to compete as an amateur, so I had to just um, jump straight into the pro circuit, and just learn on the fly. And yeah, I won my first fight in the first round by knockout, and then kind of just learned on the job, which I would not recommend for anybody else. It's a stupid fucking way to do it. Um, yeah, and on my fourth fight, I was fighting for the UFC lightweight title, and obviously I won that in the fifth round by submission, which is crazy because I never really would expected myself to be a grappler. Um, but yeah, had to be for that fight. So, and then kept fighting locally and doing my thing. As soon as I started MMA, my side was like, I have to get to the UFC. That is where the best fighters are. And at that time, fighting wasn't about like making money or like getting famous or any of that shit that you do now. Because back then it was like no one was famous, no one was making like real money from MMA. So I was like, whatever, I'm just gonna fight, and I want to fight the best guys and to win as many titles as I can and like do everything. And I was like, the best guys are in the UFC. So in order to be the best guy, you got to go to the UFC. I had no idea about like the business of MMA. I just was like, best guys in the UFC, and if you're the UFC champion, you are the man. Like, that is the ultimate achievement in the sport. And so when I got signed to the UFC, it was like everything that I had envisioned for myself when I was a little like teenager. Having my first Muay Thai fight was like fucking validation that all the time that you spend training before school, after school, fucking just committing my whole life to it was like validation for like, yeah, you chose the right path and things are good. And then obviously I had my debut in the UFC, knocked that guy out in the second round as well. And then I had my second fight in the UFC and I won that by decision against one of the top 10 guys now. And then COVID hit us and that kind of fucked me a little bit. Just as I was like getting on a roll, we got locked down. And so COVID was like crazy because it was, I mean, fuck. COVID feels like the crazy, like the craziest period of life, like ever. Like what the fuck? But yeah, that kind of like showed me that the most important thing for me in that realization was knowing that like fighting wasn't my whole identity. It wasn't like everything about me. And like you realize that when you can't fight and when like sponsors drop out because you're not fighting and because you're locked down because of COVID. And you realize like, oh, okay, the most important thing, well, for me, that's what I realized was like family. And so that's when my wife and I decided to, start a family. And the frustration with the UFC and all that shit happened. And then eventually I moved over to the PFL, and that was great for me. The PFL was great. The guys there were awesome. They treated me as an athlete like really well. Um, um, And yeah, like I guess that's pretty much it. And then obviously calling it a day um, on fighting was a decision that I knew I was gonna make. Like if I couldn't finish another season in the PFL, like so the 2024 season, if I couldn't finish that because of injuries and shit like that, then there's no point continuing through. I already had set up a business. I have a couple of businesses that I've already set up through fighting. And so that was like an easy decision for me. It's like, do I keep just smashing my body, destroying my body, and fighting, then getting injured, and then not fighting, and then waiting, and then this and that, or do I just take all the experience that I've made in these 20 something years of competing and start and just focusing into coaching? And that's exactly what I've done, and that's kind of like what I've just done. And that's the kind of avenue that I'm moving now, and that's kind of the reason for the podcast too, is to kind of give some of the insights and shit that I've learned over these 20 years, and hopefully some young guys will get some use of this and get some tips and figure a few things out that I had to figure out on the fly. Um, one of the things that I believed when I started fighting that I got absolutely fucking completely wrong was like you have to be the toughest guy, the hardest guy. You have to work harder than everybody, and you got to smash through injuries and like, hard sparring fucking multiple times a week, and you got to that was the one thing that I got completely wrong when I first started fighting. You don't have to be the toughest guy in the room. In fact, the guys who are the toughest in the room usually aren't the guys that make it all the way to the top. Um, and that was like one of the biggest things. I'm paid the price for it now. Obviously, like injuries, like you get hurt, when you're 20 years old, you can fucking have gym wars every week and train yourself into a fucking hole and have no recovery strategies and eat like shit and just fucking go hard, and then you hit 28, 30, and then things start fucking falling apart, and um, you start to realize like, oh, okay, that wasn't the right route, and you got to kind of veer path. And so yeah, like I guess like the thing that combat sports really teaches you is that like the most important thing is consistency. Discipline is obviously super important, but consistency, which kind of ties into discipline, is way more important because it's all good and well to be disciplined and focused in an 8-week fight camp, like take care of your nutrition, your recovery, and all that shit. And then out of camp, just fucking let it all fly, and everything falls by the wayside, you know. Um, Whereas consistency matters way more in that regard, where it's like what you do is everything that you do. Like your life is this discipline, and especially if you want to like take it seriously, it's like everything about your life needs to be focused on this one goal. And I guess that's the thing that combat sports teaches you, is that consistency. you know just keep hammering at it over time. You don't have to do 1,000 things at once. Just stay consistent, keep doing the same thing over and over, and keep consistent. That's the biggest lesson that I've learned about from combat sports. Also about confidence. For me, the most confidence I've ever been is when I've prepared for everything. I prepared for the worst occasion, the best occasion. I'm physically prepared. I'm tactically prepared. I'm technically prepared. Everything is prepared to literally as far as I can do it, and that brings so much confidence, and I guess carries over into life. If you when you're prepared for what you're gonna do, like there's no reason to not feel confident, and that's like such a good lesson that combat sports or competing will teach you. Um, and also understanding that like losing is part of fucking development. Now, obviously, as professionals, we want to like protect our records and like try and, because you're not going to go to the UFC if you fucking 0-5. Um, so, but losing is important, and sometimes those losses need to happen in the gym. They don't need to happen on the stage, but they need to happen in the gym, and you need to have a good enough ego to be able to handle that. And that's where not getting into like gym wars and not trying to like out train an injury. That's where that sort of like insight comes in, because I know me. Like I was like, you're not gonna beat me around in the gym. I'm gonna fucking fight you tooth and nail. And even if we both get hurt, both get injured, like I'm not gonna lose that round. That part of like having to lose in the gym only came later in my career, where I was like, okay, like losing is part of the development, and understanding that the loss in the gym isn't the loss in the arena. The loss in the gym is like part of development. It's how you find your holes, and you find new things that you need to work on. And that was a very very important lesson that I learned through combat sports, and everyone should learn. I feel like most people quit combat sports because they never really learn that lesson, and then the first time that they truly face that like adversity of like losing is in the arena. They've never lost in the gym. They never lose around the gym. They never lose anything. Everything is going like well for them outside of competing, and then they have that one first hit, and then they just just destroys them mentally. And you see it with guys that have like these great like 12 fight win streaks, and then they have one really bad loss and then just never come back. It's just like mentally they just it's done, And the cage, the fighting, the cage doesn't build character, but it does reveal it. It tells you everything that you need to know. I know more about people just by watching how they are in a fight than if I had to talk to them for months, like a therapy, like a fucking one-on-one therapy session. Just watching someone fight, it tells me a lot about their character, and I think that's a really important thing is that cage will reveal who you are. Um, we'll see when you want to quit. See when you'll dig deep if you're willing to do it at all. It tells you a lot about a person. You know, I think like a lot of young people get, or a lot of like guys now in MMA make big mistakes, or they follow these like myths of like, you know, the more techniques you know, the better the fighter you are. You know. Now, I know from personal experience training with like a lot of guys over my long career is that the best guys, the best guys don't necessarily have the most techniques or like things they can do, but the things that they do are so good. Like, let's say you have like four techniques that you know, but those four techniques you can do at like a fucking razor, like a razor's edge, and it's so sharp, it's so perfect. That guy will always, in my opinion, have better potential than the guy who has, 25 different techniques. It's so funny. It's like that Bruce Lee fucking quote of like, practice one kick 1,000 times rather than 1,000 kicks one time. It's so true. It's it's definitely one of the biggest myths is that you need to know every single move or every single thing. I feel like you need to be a specialist in one or two areas, at least one area, and then you need to be like a jack of all trades in all the areas. Like you need to know how to do everything, kinda, but there has to be something that you are a specialist at. When the MMA first started, it was like only specialists. It was like a specialist grappler, but he didn't know how to fucking throw a punch. And there'd be like a professional boxer, but he's never touched the ground before. Now it's like everyone wants to be a jack of all trades, but no one's really a specialist until you see a specialist come in, and then you're like, oh fuck, okay, there's the gap. You can see like a massive gap. You see like guys like the Alex Pereiras that come in that are like specialists at like one thing, but they're good everywhere else. They know how to do everything else, but they're so elite in this one area. Like Khabib. Khabib is like the best example. He's so elite in that one area of grappling. Elite, like a complete specialist. But he can put hands on you. He can strike with you. He can kickbox. He can box. He can do everything. But he is a specialist in one field, and that is like the elite of the elite. And it's not that he's doing a million different techniques. We know what Khabib, like a guy like Khabib's going to do to you. You know exactly what he's going to do. Same thing with Islam and George St. Pierre, like those types of fighters. You know what they're going to do. It's not like they're doing like all these flashy different techniques. You know what they're going to do, but they do it so well that you can't do shit about it. So, um, yeah, I mean, the other thing that guys get wrong is everyone thinks that they have to train harder. Now, that's like a fine line because you do need to train hard. You have to train hard. You got to push. Hard work pays off, right? But if your skill is here and my skill is here, you just training harder isn't necessarily gonna level up your skill. You know, um, you need to train better to get your skill level up. Now, if two guys are evenly matched and the other guy works harder on improving or preparing for a fight, then yeah, for sure that counts. But like you can't just be like a lazy fuck and think you're gonna be an MMA champion. It's just not gonna happen. Um, You know, it's the same as like the idea of like talent wins fights. Like I don't believe that at all. You see it all the time. You see two fighters and you're like, on paper, this guy is gonna fucking crush this guy because he's just so much more talented. He has so many more attributes. He's a physical specimen. He can do all these cool things. But then this guy is just a grinder and he is just prepared to fucking die in that cage. And oftentimes that's the guy. That's the guy that wins, you know. Um, there's a lot of guys like that. Sean Strickland is such a great example. Like now when he fought Khamzat, it's like on paper, Khamzat should just eat him alive. It should just be like an absolute whitewash. But he didn't. and and you can't say that Sean beat him because of talent. I don't believe that. I think he beat him because of sheer will and the fact that he prepared fucking hard for Kamzat. He prepared for him. He didn't just come in there and think like, oh, I'm just gonna beat him the way I beat everybody else. Like, no, he had to prepare for what Kamzat was gonna show him, and it showed, um, and I think that's why like having sort of systems in place for your training rather than just like relying on like this technique, this technique, or like striking, grappling, wrestling, instead of like just having like systems that can link into every sort of domain where it's like there's a system for striking, there's a system for grappling, there's a system for wrestling, there's a system for decision making. Um, that's where like I try and like I'm always constantly trying to build systems for everything rather than like think of like individual techniques because the reality is that like do I know every single fucking technique there is? No, I don't. I don't. And I'm more than willing to say like I'm not a fucking expert in every field, like obviously. But but learning how to recognize systems or concepts and patterns that you can apply into like most things, um, that I think is where the real skill lies or the real talent should like lie. Um, you know. And I think that's like what makes like elite fighters like so different to like, good guys that are good but like never were elite. Um, it's like habits. It's like those little like those habits that they have of like, you know, um, well, obviously we spoke about like consistency and stuff like that, but like habits of like, you know, arriving to arriving to the gym 10 minutes before training to get like warmed up, do your mobility, get all your gear on, like make sure you're ready for training, like mentally prepare for the session. Um, being professional, dressing sharp, making sure they look presentable when they're like have cameras on them, like being coachable, fucking hell. Like there are some days that in through my like years of coaching where I'm coaching somebody, I'm just like, how are you not fucking understanding what I'm saying right now? Like it's like I'm speaking a different language. Um, yeah, the ability to be coached, the ability to learn, and the ability to like handle pressure, like that is that is like that is as important as the techniques and the skills themselves and like the physical preparation. It's like being able to handle pressure. There are so many guys that I've trained with throughout the years where in the gym you look at this guy training and you like see him sparring and you see him grappling and like you're like this guy how is he going to lose? You can't lose. You can't lose. And then he goes to a fight and he gets fucking smoked. And then you see another guy that in the gym like loses all the time. Um, and then he goes out there and he's just an absolute monster. It's that ability to handle the pressure and get in there and not let the pressure fold you and make you forget about all your techniques, or make you forget about all the training and preparation, or make you too nervous or too like excitable that you can't actually like keep your heart rate down and like stay cool and stay like inside the fight because like trying to stay in the fight is part of the battle, not just actually being in the fight and dealing with the fight. Is actually staying mentally present in the fight because there's crowds here, there's you can hear the commentator here, your corner shouting, his corner shouting, this guy's punching you in the face. There's a lot of shit going on. To be able to stay present in this moment, in each minute, each second of the fight is like a skill on its own. That is what separates the elite. the elite guys understand that if they lose a minute of the fight, the next minute is a fresh fight. You know, it's not like, oh, I lost a minute of this first fight, and now all you're going to be doing is thinking about getting that minute back. No, the next minute's a new fight. And then you lose that minute, fine. The next minute's a new fight. So now you won that minute. So now it's a new fight. You can't. I had a Thai trainer that told me once, he was like, you can never let a win get to your head, but you should never let a loss get to your heart. And that is like the biggest thing. Like, the elite guys, they can lose the scramble, or even lose a round, or even lose like an exchange, but they can reset back and then still make things happen and not have that burden of that thing sitting behind them, saying like, oh, you just got taken down, or you just got like, dropped now you got to like you got to be careful of this guy. To understand that every second that happens is a new fight technically, and it's an interesting one. um, you know, and I think what's happening now in like the UFC, like I don't know about everyone else, but I'm fucking excited to see Conor come back. Like I know everyone's like hates on Conor, and everyone's like, he's washed and he's whatever, he's like fucking scumbag or whatever. Everyone hates him. But tell me when last we had a fucking guy that hasn't fought for like 4 years, or however long he hasn't fought for, announces he's gonna fight and sells out an event in the first like 4 minutes. It's like, bro, that should tell you everything you need to know about him. It's like he say whatever you want about like his personal shit, but for MMA, we need him for MMA because right now we have zero stars, like real stars, where you like, oh, I'm gonna wake up at fucking, if you're in South Africa, you're waking up at 3 in the morning to watch the fights until 7. Like, who are we doing that for? You know, I'll tell you right now, I'm gonna do that when Conor fights. I'm gonna fucking wake up and I'm gonna watch that shit because I want to see it. I want to see what kind of shape he's in. I want to see all the shit talk. I want to see all this. I just want to see if like old Conor comes back, is he gonna be fucking light and bouncy again, or is he gonna, or is he just gonna be like a fucking like the fucking drunk old man that like your uncle who's had a couple beers or a couple brandies, and then he's like, oh, back when I fought, I was like this, and he goes against Max Holloway and gets. I want to see that shit. So no, I think where the UFC is right now, it's like they need Conor. They need another Conor. A lot of guys are trying to be like that, but it's just like fuck, prime Conor, prime Conor McGregor was like a fucking unicorn, bro. Like he was just like prime Conor was just something else. Like let's not even like joke about that. Like prime Conor was unreal, just unreal. It was the man spoke perfectly. He predicted his shots. He predicted the finishes. He went and performed. He beat like legends, like just and made it look easy. Yeah, we need another Conor. We need someone like that. Um, we need someone like that. Um, I'm fucking excited to see him. I'm excited to see him come back for sure. And then you got like the PFL. Obviously, I fought in the PFL. Um, so I think the PFL is awesome because what they do is instead of making it only about like marketing and hype and storytelling, they make it more about the fighting. Which is cool for a purist or like a true like MMA fan like nut. Like that's awesome to watch because you get two guys that are there. They are like telling their stories about how they fucking grew up like this and oh life was so hard and shit. They just like they come there and they want to fight and they understand that fighting, it's an exchange. I give you a bit of my body and I get paid for it, and I give you some entertainment and I get paid for it. Like, we don't need to be fucking Miss America for every fight. Um, and that's why I'm glad that the PFL has come to Africa too. Give the guys, the local guys here, a bigger platform to sort of um, showcase their skills. And potentially, if you are the type of guy that can be a star or like a Connor, a superstar, then maybe you'll go to a place like the UFC. But if you're not that guy, but you are just equally as talented, but you're not necessarily a sellout that wants to like fucking hype up every fight and like do all this media shit, but you're a really good fighter and you want to fight, there are options. There's so many options now, you know. Um, especially like, the EFC, is the premier sort of South African or African, what was the African show, and I think they're starting to come back now. Like their show in Cape Town was unreal. I thought it was incredible. It was so good to have them back in Cape Town. And I think, like having shows like that and having guys compete on that just gives everyone more options. Guys realize that, oh, I don't have to go overseas. I don't have to go to the UFC if I want to fucking make money and do this and become a star or like whatever. Um, I can do it, locally. I can do it where I live, in front of my own crowd, my own home people. Um, so yeah, I mean, like I think that's we're on the right path, and you know, it's a good time. It's a good time to be in Africa or in South Africa, especially for MMA. Yeah, I think MMA in Africa in general can really become a powerhouse because if you just look at the genetic potential in Africa, it's fucking crazy. Like like crazy. Like there is some dude right now in fucking Congo that is just a genetic fucking specimen. And if he just gets the right training, the right guidance, and the right opportunities, like like there's there's no saying where the limit for that is. And it's just about the more eyes we get onto sort of African fighters, the more investment we get, the more the sport grows, and then more of those guys get the opportunities. It's not like when I first started MMA, it was like fucking, my mom was watching. That's it. Like we didn't really get many eyes on us. So it's a great we're in a good spot. So one of the things that I would like to keep doing on the show is every week I'm going to ask a couple questions to 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 the guys on my social media, and if I have guests or whatever down the line, I'll cater it towards that. But this week I asked just generally any questions about MMA or fighting or combat sports or whatever, and one of the questions I got was. Uh, do I think that not having wrestling as a base in South Africa for like kids growing up is like a downfall or is like hindering our ability to become like an MMA powerhouse? It's tough to say because you know y- yes, okay, we can all agree that wrestling is definitely the best base for MMA. Now, I would argue that currently, right now, out of all the champions that are in the UFC now, who of them are come from wrestling, have a wrestling base, or like we're like elite wrestlers, currently, just off the top of my head, I can't think of it right now, but the only one that I can think of now would be Islam, and and he's technically from Sambo, and so I'm just thinking like, I think I mean my kid does wrestling. My kid's wrestling now. And I think that wrestling or combat or some sort of combat sport should be like mandatory in schools. Um, you know, like they have it in Russia and in the US and stuff. It's like, yeah, that should be mandatory. I don't think it's going to be something that will like necessarily hinder our ability to become a powerhouse in MMA, but it would definitely fucking help. So, if you have any say in being able to put sports into school systems, put wrestling in. Motherfuckers need to wrestle. You know, if we had a wrestling culture like we have a rugby culture, fuck everyone else. We'd be the best. I mean, clearly we have our rugby culture is so good and our team is so fucking good. We are the best at it, the best because we have such a good culture around us. If we apply that to fucking literally anything else, the same thing would happen because South Africans work fucking hard and we are like obsessive people, you know. We just are. I don't know if it's like a cultural thing or if it's like I don't know. But as South Africans, I know when we fucking into some shit, we will fucking do it all day, every day, for the rest of our lives. Um, that's what I've noticed, at least. That's how I am, I guess. Um, one of the one of the other questions that was asked was what what makes someone able, or what do I think makes someone able to become a coach of athletes? Now it's a tricky question because like you can be in combat sports or train martial arts and coach people for sure, like and coach people to like compete amateur or compete or just learn the skills and stuff like that. You don't have to have any elite background or anything like that to do that. I think knowing some martial arts is better than knowing no martial arts, so like, you know 99.9% of the population think they can fight. um, they can't. So like they literally can't, because if you take someone that's done boxing for a year and it's like a jiu-jitsu blue belt, they're fucking up most guys. Like they're gonna fuck up pretty much anyone that they face in a hand-to-hand fight. That's just like reality. um because most people don't know how to fight. So being able to teach someone like that, I think, like, anyone can do to a certain like degree, but when it comes to coaching guys that want to be fighters, and especially professional fighters, I think there has to be two criteria, maybe more, but I don't know. I can only think of two off the top of my head right now. Elite experience, right? So elite experience can be obviously you yourself being elite and being able to have performed at a high level or professional level, or whatever level that you're trying to make the athlete go to, or you have coached someone previously to that level. Um, which oftentimes doesn't happen unless you yourself have done it. So, but that doesn't mean that you can't be someone that has never done that, but knows a lot about the sports, has a lot of insight, and does a lot of work. Like you can do a lot of work on yourself. I know I do a lot of studying. I study a lot of things. I record things, I slow them down. I look for little common themes in fights that I can sort of take details of and go and look to coach my guys. Um, so you can be the guy that doesn't have a lot of experience or a lot of like coaching experience, but he is dedicated to coaching and dedicated to improving and finding data and applying that data, or just being able to even transfer knowledge. Someone that is a good teacher, for instance, a great example is someone like John Danaher, who never actually was a competitor, but is a fucking philosophy professor. So his ability to like give you concepts and ideas and explain things to you is like elite shit. It's like elite. Now all he needs is the knowledge. So he can just learn techniques and study things, and he can take the core concepts and give it to his athletes. So there is that. That, I think, is a lot more rare than the experience, you know. Um, it's a tricky one, It's like I don't feel like I'm in any place to say, oh, this is the only way you can do it, or this is the. But there are those two main sort of themes of it. Someone hasn't actually experienced anything in their life, but they understand how to give information, and they work really, really hard on studying and building that information like backlog. Um, And then there's actual lived experience. I've been there, I've done that. I know what works, I know what doesn't, and I've et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you can just carry on from there. Um, that's like quite a good way to go. But then again, a lot of fucking good athletes are shit coaches. They're like the worst. Like they can't explain. It's just because you can do something doesn't mean you can show it. So it's a tricky one, man, and it's not something. It's not for everybody. It's really not for everybody. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much, those are the only two real questions that I thought were like cool to address, because there were, for me, it was like I had to really think about those, like why, what makes someone able to coach? You know, it's a tricky question. But yeah, I mean, like, that's pretty much all I have for you guys today. And you know, hopefully you enjoy it. And we are gonna keep. I'm gonna try to put out an episode a week. Um, Send through comments, send through suggestions of whatever you want. If you guys want guests, topics that you want me to talk about, questions. I'm gonna, like I said, every week I'm gonna let you guys send in your questions. So send in questions. Um, Let me know what you want me to talk about, what you want to hear on the podcast, who you want to see on the podcast. You know, like right now it's just me, and I don't expect you guys to listen to me talk shit for a fucking hour every day. But if you want to hear someone else talk some shit, you know, maybe they will be more interesting than I am. I get pretty sick of hearing my own voice as well. So I will catch you guys on the next time. Thanks for joining me. Peace out.